chat.
Okay, we're live streaming, so you can start now, Dr. Johnson.
All right. Good evening. Hope everybody is doing well. Appreciate everybody taking some time this morning.
Hola, buenas tardes. Espero que estén todos
this
bien.
evening. I will turn to Jenny Picard on our comms team to give a little bit of a high-level update on how we'll proceed today, and then we'll jump into sharing a few slides.
Thank you. So the format of this meeting is that Dr. Johnson is going to go through his presentation, and then at the end, we're going to take questions. And because we've got a large group here, the best way to do that is to enter your questions into the chat box, and they will go to me, and then I will ask them. We also on this call have Spanish interpretation available. So to do that, you select at the bottom, there's an interpretation button, and you can select which language you would like to hear the presentation in. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Johnson.
Thanks, Jenny. Again, appreciate you all taking an hour out of your Tuesday evening to just hear from us around an update around where we are. And so we are always on a quest to be the best school district in the state of Tennessee. And we believe we do that by ensuring that our students are prepared and we create bright paths for their future, and that students are supported with the skills and the knowledge and supports that are necessary to ensure that they reach their fullest potential. You know, we know that in order for that to happen, that every student has to have access to an excellent teacher, and that every teacher has to have access, and every school has to have access to excellent leadership, and that every school deserves access to excellent resources to meet the diverse needs of students. You know, I think for all of us, when we go back and begin to think about this pandemic, this global pandemic, we never would have imagined in March of last year that we would be here. And I want to take just a moment to really share our deep and heartfelt appreciation for everybody that has just gone above and beyond, and in particular our teachers and staff and leaders that just continue to do amazing things in a situation in which there is no playbook, there is necessarily no previous history on how to operate a school district in the midst of a global pandemic. But our teachers have continued to respond and to be exceptional, and we just want to simply say thank you. We thank you from the bottom of my heart, not just as a superintendent, but also as a parent myself of a Hamilton County school student. So when we started, you know, we developed in late May, I guess it was, a reopening task force, because, you know, we knew that reopening a school system of over 44, approaching 45,000 students would be complex with 6,000 employees and all the moving pieces and parts that's there. And I really appreciate the work of Jen Bronson and folks like Lieutenant Colonel Bill Brooks and Keith Fogelman and Nikia Towns, the Deputy Superintendent, and so many others across our team, really in the development of this plan and this framework. And you know, we shared that the plan was a guide and it was a part of the continuous learning plan and requirement of the state. But we also shared that it was not a how-to document, and it was a plan that we would modify as necessary, you know, based on what we learn and what is a novel virus and a global pandemic, and that it is not a school-specific, you know, operation manual. We've tried to be at the forefront of just being very, you know, clear and transparent on where we are and what's going on. We're probably one of the first school systems in the country to launch a live dashboard, and Shannon Moody on our team and so many others that are really gifted in regards to back-end IT work and set these systems up. Allowed us to be able to set this up, and also to report on which schools are closed on a daily basis. And it's been really important to us to have that at the community's fingertips, so that you all know exactly what's transpiring within our schools. I do want to be clear that over the last month or so, in particular, as we've left out of Halloween, we've seen an increase in student cases. You can see here from this graph just kind of how things have continued to spike, and that holds true for our employees as well, as in both instances, cases have doubled and we've had to respond accordingly. A major shout out and kudos to our school nurses and our school administrators who carry a big bulk of the load, obviously in partnership with the health department, but carry a big bulk of the load in regards to contact tracing, which is a key mitigation strategy as we've tried to remain open. There are bright spots. We've had 40 schools that did not have to close for a single day, which I think is a testament to, really working the plan, the mitigation strategies that are there. We had 22 schools that only had to close for 1 or 2 days and shifting to remote learning. And then 10 of our schools had 3 to 5 days of shift. And then we did have 5 schools that had 6 or more days. 3 of those schools were secondary schools. And candidly, our high schools and our high school students are a place where there's a good bit of transiency. And our students, and not just the transiency from the standpoint of them moving, but really throughout the building, they transfer, they shift from class to class, and are deeply engaged in extracurriculars as well. And so not to be unexpected that high school would be a kind of a hot spot. And so as we looked at, as I shared, this plan not set in stone, and looking at what we really call reopening 2.0, and I want to give some context here. We are, as we come back in January, every signal points to cases being higher than they were potentially in August, and the situation being more complex than it was even in August as we opened. So we knew it was really important to have conversation around that and plan accordingly. And so your input has been really, really critical. We deployed a survey a couple of weeks ago. We've continued to meet with advisory councils. Our reopening task force has met weekly throughout the month of December. Today, our community superintendents held learning community staff meetings, all in a goal to getting to Friday, hopefully having whatever modifications to the plan necessary pretty firmed up. We also presented to our school board last week, just based on this data that was here. And again, pleasingly, amazingly, we appreciate the community's involvement. Over 16,000 of you took time to give us really necessary feedback and input around what we might do. And this, mirrors the amazing level of engagement that we've had around surveys. We had 25,000 respondents the first survey, 20,000 the second, and more than 16,000 on this one. Again, mostly parents, which is to be expected, but we value and need everybody's voice. One of the things we have continued to look at, and we'll probably come back and hit here, was that a second semester gradual reentry was one of the kind of key things we wanted to get insight on. We started the year off with a safe start, great start, and it really helped our schools, our students acclimate to the expectation. To be abundantly clear, we'll have about 8,000 more students on campus this second semester as we put out that survey for parents to make their choice for the second semester. And so I definitely know there's some acclimation needed. When we asked the question about would there be support around that, what we found is that about 72% of employees said there would be, and about 51% of parents said absolutely. And you can see the breakdown there. I won't read it to you, but again, really important for us to understand what's important to you as a community, obviously our employees, as well as we look at reopening school. The other thing we really want to get feedback around is, the remote day. And so in our hybrid AB schedule, Wednesday was set as our remote day for learning. And obviously Group A students came Monday and Tuesday, Group B students Thursday and Friday. And really understanding that, whether that Wednesday was a day we wanted to look at or was Friday, a day that we wanted to look at. And there are pros and cons to both of them. I won't get into all the nuances and intricacies, but Wednesday allows us an opportunity to separate the two groups, hopefully get any contact tracing done, do any hands cleaning we need to do. Friday, conversely, is a day in which we do traditionally see a little bit higher uptick in absences, but also have a little more difficult time filling our vacancies, and so with subs. And so, reason to look at it for both. When we put that out there to parents and employees, in both instances, there was a slight lean towards Wednesday versus the Friday as the remote learning day. in a hybrid AB schedule. And then the phase change announcement, one of the things to be abundantly clear, we had a lot of feedback when we first started about the cadence and the rhythm of school operation. And what we heard from the community and we heard from our teachers, even in buildings, is let us get into a rhythm and keep us there for a period of time versus, shifting and changing us on a week-to-week basis. Made absolute sense to us. And so we went to essentially providing 3 weeks of information at a time. That put us in a bind, to be very transparent, the week before Thanksgiving, because as cases were continuing to climb, our regular cadence had been to make a call on the Friday before for not the next week, but the next 2 weeks. Again, 3 weeks of information. We saw cases trending upwards. We paused until Tuesday to make an announcement. We still remained in phase 3. And so we made the call based on that. But what we have learned as a result of that is that there is absolutely volatility in the way cases are coming in and just the sheer amount of cases. We needed to put the question out there about how much time between phase change announcements and how much time between literally the changing of a phase is needed. Overwhelmingly, what we heard from the public, from you all, is that 59.2% of you said that the day that a phase changes, you want us to alert you. And then additionally, or in addition to that, in regards to the notice of change, remember I said we've been on a 3-week cadence. What we heard in this survey or saw in this survey is that 87% of you basically said that you need a week or less to prepare. And we would attribute, a good bit of this to everybody becoming more comfortable with the virtual environment somewhat and how to navigate it from a teacher lens and a parent lens. And so we definitely took that feedback to heart. Phase 2 and learning options. One of the things that we really wanted to understand, we took the approach of a K-12 approach really across our phases when we initially implemented the plan. And as we have learned and continue to learn, we knew we needed to put the question, did we need to look at a grade band approach, be it K3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12, what have you. I think we put to the survey in a K2, 3, 5 fashion and 6, 8, 9, 12. And you can see here just in phase 2, overwhelmingly, that most people said that in-person learning across all the grade bands remained of extreme importance in phase 2. When we asked the question for phase 1, still pretty strong in the early grades. Then you can see as the grade bands move up, less and less desire for in-person learning. So all that is information that we take into consideration, and the survey and the data indicates that there is some support for differentiating the learning model by grade band in phases 1 and phases 2. So as we look at recommendations, options for consideration, obviously that the health and safety data in our community and school base is really important. The survey response data, as I've shared a little bit of high level of that, there is some true instructional model complexity, and our teachers can speak and attribute to that. It's really been a remarkable fate that they've taken on. Technology availability. We have been on the waiting list for technology. And kind of been in the hopper, so to speak, or in the queue, waiting on our additional devices to get here. But we know in particular in K2, we do not have the devices that are necessary. The developmental appropriateness is something that's always top of mind, especially in grades K2. And then we had conversation with school leaders today in 3rd grade, really rose up as well. Substitute staffing ability, and then space utilization are all things that are considerations. So really based on that feedback, some of the potential things that we're really thinking is if we're in phase 2 or 3 by January 6, we'll follow a gradual reentry plan for K-12. Obviously in phase 1, we'd have to look at the 6th through the 8th as days, but want to be really sensitive to the fact that, again, we have approximately 8,000 students that are coming back, and there's overwhelming support from staff and from parents in this regard, really as well. I won't say as much overwhelming with parents, but there was a majority of support with parents and overwhelming support from employees. And as students come back, we really understand and we trust that everybody's going to really, we all have to uphold our end of the bargains in regards to staying safe. But we know there's a propensity to gather, and we'll have to navigate that challenge as we return. So, in regards to hybrid learning and the remote day, what we saw is that with parents and employees, that Wednesday ended up edging out Friday as the preferred remote day, and it's consistent with the current plan. And what we continue to hear is that there's greater engagement when we have that Wednesday as a remote day versus the Friday, and it becoming a 3-day week. And so we again want to be really cognizant of that. In regards to the grade banded approach, and I'll talk through this a little bit more, but 412, no changes in phases 2 or 1. These are all considerations based on the survey. And then in K3, in phase 1, K3 would be on an AB schedule, where a group will come Monday and Tuesday, and a group will come Thursday and Friday. And then in phase 2, K3 could potentially come 4 days a week, with Wednesday being a remote day, most likely an asynchronous remote day for all students. We also, obviously this is the, only week system-wide that we've, gone fully remote. And in this school year, and obviously, we are very sensitive to the needs of our exceptional ed and ESL students, and so we would be able to accommodate and modify what we did to allow them to be on the hybrid AB for phase 2. And then phase 1, the modifications will look similar to our students that are K3. And then, again, in K12, all schools serving multiple grade bands would follow what's going on in that grade band. So we do have some combo schools, but for clarity's sake and system continuity, that's what we would look at. So kind of a one-page snapshot here. You see in phase 2, the adjustment or tweak that we would be looking at is that K3 students would be attending 4 days a week in phase 2, with Wednesday being the remote day. In phase 1, K3 students would be on an AB schedule, with a group coming Monday and Tuesday and a group coming Thursday and Friday. Students in grades 4 through 12 would stay true to what has been in phases 1 and phases 2 for all students. When we look at the rationale behind it, obviously I talked a little bit about technology resources, older students really being able to navigate, those resources. The survey also showed us that there is a desire, and then the development and the technology ability and the ability to deliver instruction for students. We really heard from our K2 focus group of teachers that even with technology available, that there is more of a challenge with a first grader trying to log onto a Zoom and to navigate it. There's also, a growing body of research about younger students and younger children just in general, and their ability to spread COVID-19. And we'll share some of that. And we've also got a web link that is, I believe, live now that you can check out at your leisure. But we think it's really important to make sure that you know what we know as we're finding out more and more about the virus. We've been talking to school principals, and one of the things, again, the survey was presented K2. One of the things that we really heard loud and clear today was that third grade is a grade developmentally that is very similar to second grade in regards to maturation and developmental ability, and really a desire to see third grade students included in that grade band. So K3 being the look that's there in regards to the grade banded approach. And then we would still allow flexibility. And so this is one of the things, again, that we want to give sensitivity and autonomy to the school base. But, as they look at class sizes and how they need to operate, we want to be able to give flexibility for grades 4 to 5 to offer based on the need and based on the ability to accomplish the goals that are really set there by our continued learning plan, continued starting plan. So some of the research that's out there, I won't go through this, but would encourage you to check out our website. You can see it at the bottom there, www.hcd.org /follow the research. but just some of the headlines of what we're learning. Studies in Germany and other countries that have had this, even before us, are finding more and more, in particular, again, with students that are 10 and younger, that the viral load, the capability of carrying the virus, and even our doctors on the reopening task force have spoke to this as they are learning more and more about the virus. So again, we have a research tab that's available for you, and we encourage you to check that out at your leisure. This approach also is supported by the data that we're seeing. So I mean, you can just see from this that our high schools really end up and have had this first semester twice the amount of cases that we've seen, in particular in K2 and almost K5. And so again, it speaks to the activity level of high school students and some of the challenges with class changes and extracurriculars that we know exist for that grade band. So again, just to recap, in phase one, what we will be looking at here, and I'll give you just a second to take that in. Wednesday, you see being the remote day in phase one. And then phase two, give you just a moment to take that in. K3 students will be on campus 4 days a week in phase two. And then again, Wednesday being the remote day for schools and for students in that situation as well. One of the other conversations we've had is around the phase tracker, and again, some of the learning that exists there. Our steps going forward, just based on what we took in from this survey, is that we'll continue to update the phase tracker on the website on a daily basis using a 5-day average. And I want to just take a moment. We pivoted early on in August to a 5-day average because of some of how the cases were rolling in. Literally one day, 50 cases would come in, and the next day 220 cases would come in, and it was so volatile, and we're moving from day to day. And it was really, in particular at that point, it was because of the backlog, and still probably is even at this point, as there have been more and more positive cases at the state and even at the county level, just because of how it's coming into the state from the state. And so we got to a 5-day average to create some consistency on either end, on both ends. But we'll continue that daily post with the 5-day average. We'll publish that new phase on Tuesdays, would be our thought. And the reason again for that is, we found that really we early on, it was Monday that was a heavier day for cases coming in. Now it appears that Tuesday is a heavier day for cases coming in. And then we'll communicate the schedule for that upcoming Monday. Generally speaking, you're going to be able to see where we're headed and where the trends are. So you have that information at your fingertips, but we will communicate on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, just as an FYI in regards to where we are going to be that upcoming Monday. This allows us to essentially, be able to eliminate the transition band, because what we heard from the community is that you want a week-to-week type of cadence and situation. And so we'll take that away because it doesn't create any clarity. The active case counts remain the same. And I should point, one of the things that we didn't talk about is we took a fairly conservative approach to moving into phase one, when we began to look and source some other counties and other places across the country that were looking at having a gating criteria or phase threshold. A lot of them begin their phase one approach, or moving to all online at a 1.0%. We took a 0.8% route, just because we thought it was probably the best approach, as we move forward. So we definitely will continue to keep the health at the forefront. So just other general potential updates. Most of our schools have moved where K2 is wearing face coverings in phase 1 and 2. We'll definitely be looking at that. Partitions as well. Something that most of our schools are using and will continue that. Air filtration systems. One of the things in our special ed classrooms in particular, and some of our, our really high needs special ed classrooms where, getting students because of whatever the disability is to wear a mask is a challenge in our self-contained classrooms. We want to do all we can to, increase that airflow. And so we're addressing it there. You've heard, and I know it's out there about rapid tests, and that will continue. What we've heard so far from the health department in regards to vaccinations, the school nurses and selected exceptional education staff, kind of as I mentioned with self-contained and such, will end up being in the first tier of voluntary vaccinations administered through healthcare providers. And then other potential updates, again, I talked a little bit about this, but school-based flexibility. The goal of phase 2 is to reduce the class size by 50%. And that 50% is based on, the BP formula, how classes are, staffed and the number of students that are there. And so in grades 4 and 5, where there's a maximum class size of 30, that would mean 15. In grades 6 through 12, that would be 15 to 18, depending on which band you're in. And so during phase 2, schools will have a level of flexibility from the standpoint if they're already under that threshold and feel like they can safely serve students, with safety being at the forefront to navigate that as they need. In regards to whole child supports, we've talked a little bit about this, but exceptional education, we know if we're in phase 1, one of the pivots we will make is K-5 students with the most significant disabilities will be allowed to be a part of a modified hybrid schedule, right? So that's that 2-1-2, A group, B group. Phase 2, they would also be a part of that as well. And so with our English language learners, it'd be the same type of approach. And then obviously our students that are in an RTI tier or at risk, we would continue to support on a case-by-case schedule, on a case-by-case basis, based on school ability to continue to support. Just some points of clarification, other potential updates that we're looking at, work locations, all staff will be expected to report to their building. Staff gatherings, just for clarity, one of the early bodies of research that was out there, and it's a behavior changing thing that all of us had to begin to understand. But teachers haven't been a teacher. They're used to coming together, whether it's in a break room for lunch or at a planning session, and some of those things that we used to do are just things until the vaccine takes root and we begin to move down the road of this virus. We will have to navigate differently. And then in regards to duty, in particular, as we're talking K-5, all of our staff will be asked to be a part of that support mechanism and process. Substitutes, one of our real challenges, and I'll put it out there very transparently, is as schools have had an increase or uptick in student and employee cases, there also has been an uptick in obviously close contacts. And as there's an uptick in close contacts, those employees are off site for that period of time. And obviously the CDC's changed that guidance from, between 7 and 10 days, depending on, how it's approached. As that's happened, we also have had a challenge with sub fields. Much of our sub population is a good portion of it is at a high risk state, and and so you've got this dueling challenge that exists. And so one of the potential benefits of looking at the banded approach is we're able to dedicate subs to K3 because that's the on-campus group, but also dedicate other resources at schools to K3. We hear overwhelmingly this commitment to our earliest learners, just because as we move up the grade band, students can access online. And then, of course, if we're in a safe at home situation that's implemented by the state or county officials, we will have additional restrictions or expectations in regards to the operation of our system. So just some key takeaways, our health and safety will continue to be a priority. We've been fairly conservative in our, in setting risk and thresholds and adjusting our learning models accordingly. One of the key pieces here is that, we are looking at this K3 based on the survey feedback, the research, what we're seeing data-wise, in regards to our youngest children. In 412, we remain consistent with some flexibility in phase 2 for schools based on their capacity and ability. We will continue to adjust for safety and operations to really make sure that we support our K3 students that are on campus. Excuse me. The cadence of our updates will be on a weekly basis, with Tuesday being the day that we update. We'll revise that phase tracker just to remove the transition band, because we are updating on a weekly basis and notifying when a phase has changed. And then we're going to continue to monitor and research. This is a living document. We made the commitment that it's not a plan that stays on the shelf. As doctors and medical professionals learn more about the virus, and we learn more about its impact on our operation, we want to be able to be nimble. And so your continued grace as we've navigated this pandemic this first semester has been remarkable. We were the first large school system in Tennessee to go back to school, and Tennessee is already one of the earlier states to go back to school. And so, we're very proud and humbled by what took place. December 18th, we'll kind of share some final recommendations. So we think in regards to reopening and where we are, we'll share those broadly as we go forward. Just a couple of points. One of the great things that came out of this was the ability to make sure that kids are connected and to close that digital divide. We're very grateful for great partners in EPB and Blue Cross and Smart City Venture Fund, so many others that in the city and the county government that came alongside, and obviously our school board setting the direction and making sure. If you have questions about this, please reach out to your school. If you think you're eligible, we want to make sure that you're there. And then we'd ask, again, that we remain safe as we go into break, that you take the steps, we take the steps necessary as a community to keep our children in school. We absolutely know, I've shared before that I'm the son of a third grader. I'm the son of a third grader. That sounds right. I'm the parent of a third grader. He thinks I'm his son, but I'm the parent of a third grader in the school system. And, it absolutely, I believe wholeheartedly that the best place for him is with a great teacher in front of him when we can do that safely. Avoid getting too close to others, please wear your face coverings and, wash your hands and those other great steps that are there. And then we wish you a Merry Christmas and a happy holidays. And I'm gonna stop my share here as we go there, and we want to take time to take questions that may be out there.
All right, our first question is, when will the district announce what phase students will return in January?
Yes, so we'll watch cases. Obviously, our goal is this Friday to update this part of our framework in regards to any adjustments that may be made, and then we as I kind of shared, we're looking at Tuesdays the week prior to being able to make an announcement about the upcoming Monday. What we don't want to do is announce too early and then we have a phase change, but we want to announce this as early as possible. One of the other things I shared is that what we're looking at, and earlier in the presentation, what we're looking at is a safe start, great start to provide a level of consistency around how we open our doors. And then it may be that we open up with a safeguard start, great start. And at the end, we're going to put in a feedback, a survey, a feedback opportunity for you and hope you take advantage of that. But it may be that we go ahead and set, a safe start, great start, type of criteria. And then we come back and say, that we'll start implementing the phased criteria on X date. But right now, it looks as though we'll be able to make that call about a week out.
All right, our next question is, how is the district accommodating young students and families that cannot stay home alone?
So I think what we've elevated here is that there is a desire within the survey for, we heard this from teachers and in general and parents in general, and one of the things I want to go back to, we've obviously offer choice for all families. And so that's really important. But we've heard that our youngest learners, there is a desire to be on campus as much as possible. Look, we spent 90% of our first semester in phase 3, which meant all campuses were open with the exception of a school that was closed for an individual day or a group of days for contact tracing and enhanced cleaning. And so we were very, very blessed and fortunate in that regard. Obviously, as we got to Halloween, there was an uptick. And by the time we got to Thanksgiving, it's just continued, as it has across the nation, to climb. So, but what we continue to hear is that there's a desire for, in particular, our K3 to have more in-person days. And so K3, what would happen in phase 2, again, is that they would be there 4 days a week if we looked at implementing this with Wednesday being a remote day. And then in phase 1, they'd be on an A-B hybrid where they'd be grouped in A and B, and they'd come Monday and Tuesday, and then a group will come Thursday and Friday. That's much different than, it's pretty different than what we've had, right? So in phase 1, right now, students in grades K through 3 are remote. And then students in phase 2, students in K3 or AB, and it's really the acknowledgement of our, teachers, leaders, and I give our leaders a ton of credit today, even saying, hey, look, we need third graders on campus as well, of really trying to, make no mistake, when I talk to teachers and leaders, they want students in school, but there's also a desire to be safe. So I think this gives us an opportunity to accommodate trying to get our students in the building, even if we're in one of those higher thresholds for case counts more days.
All right, our next question is, if HCDE does adopt a banded approach for elementary children, is there a point at which all children will remain virtual?
Excuse me. Yes. So one of the things that I don't believe there was a COVID call either. So one of the things that we shared, right, really early on, and have shared throughout, is that there absolutely could be a place in which we need to have a conversation about all students being online. And so one of the things that came up today that we're talking about, I forget the exact number, but 3960 or whatever the top end of that phase 1 is, what kind of conversations might we need to have about remote learning system wide. So we'll have those conversations over the next, 24, 48 hours in hopes of really landing in a place on Friday. So that's a question that we're actively navigating based on conversations today. So there likely will be a place, but we need to navigate that and figure it out.
Our next question is, for HCS at home students in elementary school, will they continue with their current teacher in the spring?
Yeah, the tenor I get from most principals, so that's something that at the district level we can't necessarily control per se. Because let me just give some context here. You've got 8,000 more students coming back, which means there will be more on-campus learning, and it's 8,000, more like 7,500. Not necessarily that all 7,500 students of 7,500 of those students will come back, but we do think a majority of those students will look at returning to school. So there will have to be some pivots in school-based schedules, and principals will notify you of those shifts. I do know this. I was at an elementary school a couple of weeks ago, and I was walking with a principal, and she was talking about her 5th grade group of teachers, and she was saying to me as we were getting ready to walk down our 5th grade hall, she was saying, well, we just got our survey information back, and we know that we have enough 5th grade students to actually pull a teacher full-time. We can have one teacher full-time. We have enough students coming back that we can take one teacher full-time to be remote, because right now they've got it spread across every 5th grade teacher. And she said she posed it to her teachers, and her teachers came back and said, we although that would be probably easier for us operationally, we don't want to do that because it's better for the students to have consistency and continuity with us as their teacher, and then we've built relationships, et cetera. So I know that schools are trying to be as sensitive to those situations as possible while still trying to balance how to operate. So I would encourage you to look to your school and their teacher. It's really going to be on a case-by-case, class-by-class level based on what they can support within their schedule.
All right, we've received a couple questions about exceptional education, and this question is, will exceptional ed get to go more than 2 days in phase 1?
Yeah, so right now, I believe the thought, and I know there's, we got this, I don't know if Mitzi's on here. I see Nikhil on here. So phase 1, what we've been looking at is, them coming very much like the students in grades K through 3. And so they would get an opportunity to come. But I believe, and Nikhil, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's really a case by case where they're going to try to offer as many days as possible for those students.
That's right. You all will recognize for K-5 exceptional. Oh, Mitzi's on. Mitzi, you answer this question because you have the expertise.
Okay, hi, this is Mitzi. And yes, the students in grades K-5 will be following the same criteria that we used in phase 2 for the criteria 1 students, the kids with the most significant needs. We would be talking about the kids with vision impairments, the deaf kids, students in system-wide classes, and they could be coming up to 4.5 days a week during phase 1 for K through 5. The other kids would be still going on the remote piece in phase 1.
All right, we've received a couple questions about HCS at home, and now with this new information being shared, especially with K through 3 families, if families chose based on thinking their children would be at home in phase 1, are they allowed to switch to HCS at home now?
Yes, you can always opt into HCS at home. That's always an option throughout the course of the semester for any grade band.
All right, our next question is, are there any adjustments being made to the gating criteria to account for things we've learned, including the 1% of population being our threshold on the gating criteria?
Yeah, so what we did was we set a conservative, we set pretty conservative gates at each band, much more conservative than, I'll say much more, but more conservative than most systems that establish gating criteria. And so we had already taken a pretty conservative approach to with a focus on safety around how we matriculate through the phases. And so as a result, we've seen a pretty good result in regards to our gating criteria. Where I believe we experienced challenge, if I'm being again fully transparent, is prior to Thanksgiving, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that we probably set too ambitious a goal based on the feedback we had received of trying to give multiple weeks of information, and now based on the survey feedback, we're going to be able to be more nimble as a school district and more responsive, to the needs. And to the demands and to the cases as they come in, and being able to navigate phases. So to date, that it's been pretty good.
Our next question is, what is the max class size during phase 1 for K through 3?
The max class size for phase 1 in K through 3, yeah. So we always want to be at that 10 to 14 ideally. If we're in phase 1, we like to be closer to that 10 number. There's an average of 20 that we need to hit, and it splits there at 3rd grade. So we obviously, school by school is going, and class by class is going to be a little bit different. So you can't go from classroom 1 to classroom 2. There may be 9 in one class in a group A, and there may be 13 in another class, or 10 in another class in a group B. And so it just kind of, or group A. So it just kind of depends on the individual situation. But our goal is to get numbers just in general down to, to 10 to 12 ideally.
And Brian, I will say, statutorily, the limit for K-3 classrooms is a max class size of 25. When we reduce 50% on campus, that means we would expect in most cases to see at a maximum of 12 to 13. That assumes that 100% of your students are attending in person. In fact, for second semester as it stands, we expect for around 20% of students to be HCS at home, fully remote the entire time. So that's how we think about the phase 1. If these potential updates are adopted, that for K3 in phase 1, they would be on the reduced days on campus, only 50% of the students who are in person, and at a maximum, given the statutory limits, that would be 25 students in a classroom. But I will tell you, across K5, our average class size is about 17 for the district.
Okay, our next question is, has the county discussed mandating the vaccine before being approved to attend school?
Yeah, so the governor, I won't say it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe now a week and a half or so, this question was posed to the state, to our governor, in regards to mandating the vaccine, and his statement was pretty clear that it would not be mandated. Obviously, we're taking the state's lead in regards to how we implement the vaccine, and so we don't foresee a path to mandating it, and that's students or employees. What I would anticipate is going to happen, and again, this is crystal balling a situation that, frankly, with COVID, there's no crystal ball. But I think as more and more people, I know for myself, as you see more and more that the vaccine is being taken and it works, the likelihood and propensity of people to take it, I think is going to continue to increase, and so. We think that there will be an appetite for it, and parents and families will be able to make that choice.
All right, our next question is about the vaccine, and will it be brought to school so like we used to give flu shots at the school to help with distribution, and the question is, will the vaccine be done that way, just to make it easier on families?
So I think it's a little too early to know. They're in their initial rollout of the vaccine. I do not put it outside of the realm of possibility that could happen. Again, I can't say enough about teachers, leaders, and nurses and principals. They've taken on so much. Jen Bronson, who's our COVID-19 lead, they've taken on so much responsibility in regards to the health and well-being of students, and so I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. We have not got any indication about that, officially or unofficially. But you hear different things, and so I've heard everything from it's a possibility to absolutely not. I think we'll learn more in the coming days and weeks, and as soon as we know, we'll share that.
All right, so we received a comment about the health of teachers in younger grades versus teachers in older grades, and just how this plan seems to not take that into account. Nakia, I was on a call with you earlier where you explained the reasoning between the K through 3 with our teachers in those classrooms. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what, admittedly, guys, when this all happened back in March, there was a lot of unknowns about COVID-19 and the way that it spread. In fact, somebody brought up on an earlier call, remember that we were also worried about touch and that it could be transmitted based on surfaces, and everybody was Lysoling everything down. And then by this summer, folks were like, well, it's not so much of the surface transmission that it is the respiratory transmission. And so then we all adjusted to try to figure out like the face coverings. So similarly, there's been a lot of research that's coming out fast and furiously about COVID-19 and children and schools. And I think what's important is that the evidence that we shared on the Follow the Research and what is beginning to convalesce and that people are beginning to coalesce rather around in the scientific community is that for students who are under 10, so prepubescent, not only are those students less likely to get infected by COVID-19, they are less likely to spread it to others. Okay, so I want to be clear that some people say, well, you know, we get that children have less severe symptoms, but what about us? What about the adults? Absolutely, children do have less severe symptoms, but the science that we're following is not about who gets sickest. It's about who is contributing to spread. And there is a growing body of evidence that those children who are under 10, prepubescent children, are not contributing to spread. And in some of the articles that you can see that there's been research that followed 40,000 cases, and particularly they looked at households where the adults got COVID-19, but the children in those same households who were under 10 didn't contract the virus. And then they looked at when a child does contract the virus, even asymptomatic, what is the likelihood that that child transmits it to an adult in their household or otherwise? And again, all these studies are now lining up to show that we actually don't see that these younger children are contributors to COVID-19 spread in the same way that older children are. Our data shows something similar. We have twice the rate of positive COVID-19 cases in 9-12 versus K2. And so we're seeing that anecdotally, but we're actually looking at the body of evidence. So we absolutely think about the safety of all of our teachers, all of our staff members across the K-12 continuum. But frankly, based on all the evidence that's becoming available, one could make the argument that frankly, our teachers who support high school kids are more at risk because of the knowledge that high school kids transmit similarly to adults, whereas those children who are under 10 really have lower COVID-19 spread risk factors. So again, I think that we're all learning and we're all putting health and safety at the forefront.
All right, we've received a lot of questions around mental health and if that was under consideration when we decided on these changes to the plan.
Yeah, I think mental health is, something that's been top of mind for us for some time now. As we have looked at our budget, our board, I give our board a ton of credit. They've, support us in making commitments to, counselors, additional counselors and social workers, our budget. Our priorities have been to support, the whole child. And I think one of the things that's really important to elevate too is it's not just children, it's also employees. And so we not only try to make sure that, the whole child supports are in place for students, but also for our employees, with wellness and mental health support, frankly. And so that stays top of mind, absolutely. When we know that school plays a pivotal role in a student's development, and that's an additional adult or adults in a student's life that can help keep them steered on the right track. So, it absolutely is and remains a focus. There's never been a time in which we've had to balance, health at this level and educating students at the same time. And I'm hopeful as a superintendent that served through it that it never shows itself again. So yes, absolutely, the mental health components remain a major focus for us, and they have been for some time.
All right, we only have time for, I think, 2 more questions. The next question is, will teachers of all grades be on campus during all phases?
That is correct. Unless there's a safe at home order that's in place, we will have employees on campus. And to be clear, from our support personnel, as well as subs, et cetera, we will, leverage their expertise and supports to really help with K-3 on campus.
All right, so this is going to be our last question. There are several questions that we didn't get to, and so we're going to put a form in the chat box for you guys to submit those questions or just pieces of feedback that you want the district to consider. And our last question is, will preschool special education students serviced through the district have in-person learning during phase 1?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to, we actually talked about, we talked about pre-K. We probably should hit Nikhil if you're going to answer this pre-K and preschool special ed as well.
Yeah, exactly. Mitzi, you may want to talk about our developmental pre-K, which may be a little different from governor's pre-K. I just want to make sure I don't confuse it.
That I'm going to have to ask that people, I don't want to give a wrong answer. We can check on that. If they'll put that question, we can research that question and I can have more information about that. I know we've talked about it, but I'm afraid to I don't want to give wrong information.
Let us say, and this is the reason for everyone why we're hesitating, the pre-K programming is not under the same as the K-12 BEP funding. And in fact, our regular ed pre-K classrooms are under a different umbrella called the governor's pre-K program. And what they have told us is that the state guidance or state operating stance trumps the district. So you all may recall, if you have pre-K students, at the beginning of the school year, though we started in-person learning 5 days a week on August 31st for K-5 students, pre-K delayed until after Labor Day for 5 days because to go 5 days a week in person, because the state said, no, we set the operational cadence. And only when we determine that the pre-K programs can follow a certain operational schedule, that's when they allow it. So we will have to go back and get more information. We don't want to misspeak because we do think there are some state regulations around pre-K, both gen ed and developmental pre-K, that might supersede the district continuous learning plan.
And we'll just flag it. That's something that came up earlier today that we'll include that. We'll make sure that's readily available and visible.
I don't know, Becky's on the call. I hate to put you on the spot. Becky, do you have any further information about developmental pre-K? Is anything different? Becky Covington. Is she able to take herself off mute, Jenny?
I just said it so she can take herself off mute.
Okay, now I can. Thank you. Exactly what Dr. Town said. We do follow the state guidelines for both pre-K and DLP. As of right now, we have been, it has been suggested for both to follow kindergarten, their schedule and what they are doing. And so we will wait for guidance from the state as we move into the new semester.
All right, that was our last question. So Dr. Johnson, if you want to close us.
No, seriously, I again, much appreciation for taking time this evening. We want to hear your feedback. We know that this has been incredibly challenging on you all as well. It's been incredibly challenging on us, and can't say enough about your grace in this season and the work of our, teachers, leaders, and staff. And frankly, I'm just so proud of the way our district has responded in this really unprecedented moment. I think the word unprecedented has probably been used more in the last 9 months than anybody's ever used in any period of time. But we have almost made it to the end of the semester, and not to overplay sports analogies, but it is a halftime adjustment, and and at halftime we're not at all throwing out what's worked because so much has worked, but we're definitely tweaking around the edges to hopefully make it better for students and for our teachers and leaders and staff. And so we appreciate everything that everybody's done to give us feedback, and we look forward to your continued feedback, and we'll share more as we get through the coming days. Thanks, Jenny. Well, have a good night.